Today, we're going to be checking out Mikado Game Center in Takadanobaba, one of Tokyo's best retro gaming arcades. This place is a dream for classic gaming fans, and today I'll be trying out a bunch of different games, including some of the amazing deluxe cabinets. I had a ton of fun exploring this place, so what do you say we dive right in and see what makes Mikado Game Center so special? But first, if you want to see more videos like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. Alright, let's get to it. So there are actually 2 Mikado Game Centers in Tokyo. I already made a video on the Ikebukuro location, so if you want to check that out, check the link in the corner here. But today we're headed to the Takadanobaba location. It's really easy to get to, and it's just a 2-minute walk from the station. Alright, so a quick overview of the arcade. The arcade is broken up across 2 floors. The first floor houses all of the deluxe cabinets, racing games, light gun games, as well as music and rhythm and redemption games, and also has a large selection of standard arcade cabinets, and those are mostly going to be Astro City cabinets, but there's a few others mixed in there. The second floor is massive and primarily houses fighting games. This is where the arcade hosts their fighting game tournaments, but you'll also find various, shooters, beat-em-ups, and miscellaneous arcade games on this floor as well. So we're going to start by doing a little walkthrough here, and we're going to stop at some of my favorite games along the way. This is coming straight from the main entrance, and you're going to see, of course, passing all of the big, racing games, and you can see here some of those Astro City cabinets I was talking about. And on the right, here we have Virtual On, the dual cabinet. This is a really gorgeous arcade cabinet, and it was in fantastic condition. I sat down and played this quite a bit. It's a big favorite of mine on the Saturn, but the arcade version is even more fun. Of course, you've got the awesome dual stick setup. I highly recommend if you come by this arcade that you give this game a spin. It's totally worth it. We had a deluxe cabinet of Power Drift. Unfortunately, it was not moving and fully functional at the time, but the game itself was still pretty fun. Next up we have Metal Hawk, and this was fully functional and it was so much fun, you guys. So basically you sit in the cockpit and you pilot a helicopter, but the whole arcade cabinet moves around with you as you're turning left and right and forward and back, and it's just super fun. It did make me a tiny bit motion sick, but it was totally worth it, and yeah, highly recommend this one. It's one of my favorites from this arcade. This is Striker 2. I didn't play this one, but it looks like a cool little mix between pinball and pachinko, and I love the artwork on it. And they had Sega Rally. You can't go wrong with the 2-player cabinet of this game. It's an awesome arcade racer. They also had Densha de Go. I've actually never played this. I've seen it in so many arcades, but this was a cool older version of the game that was fun to see. Time Crisis 2, classic light gun shooting game. Yeah. Fully maintained, the screens look great. And you can see over here a few more racing games, GTI Club and Daytona USA. Of course, we all love Daytona USA. I'm a huge fan of the soundtrack. I'm sure a lot of you are. It's a really fun game, and the best way to play it is definitely in the arcade. Next up, we have Darius Burst EX, Another Chronicle. This is a really awesome shooting game that totally stole the show for me. I was just expecting like a standard Darius game, maybe like a newer version, but this was so cool. First of all, the music is incredibly good. I highly recommend you check out the soundtrack, which is on Spotify. But also the gameplay was awesome, and the cabinet itself had super loud music that really immersed you in the game, and also some other fun gimmicks like these lights that would flash when you would enter a boss fight or some other sort of like emergency situation in the game. Overall, just a really cool game, and I'm really considering now picking up the Switch version. They also had the classic original 3-screen Darius, which was awesome. I'd never seen it in person before. Yeah, it's pretty much just Darius with a giant screen if you've played any of the home ports. Very similar, but really cool. Also worth noting, a lot of the games in this arcade had these dedicated headphone outs if you wanted to listen to the music. It's kind of a cool feature that I haven't seen in many arcades, so just wanted to call that out as well. So they also had the 3-screen Ninja Warriors, which was cool. I also had not seen this in person before. Same deal with the headphone out. Really cool. The screens on this weren't calibrated as well, but it was fun to play. Afterburner Climax, this one is awesome for the Sega Lindbergh, and it has a really cool deluxe cabinet where you actually can strap in with a seat belt. Of course, you've got your joystick for piloting your aircraft, as well as like a flight shifter. I don't know what it's called because I'm not super knowledgeable about actual planes, but regardless, the cabinet moves around. It's really fun, and it has this really cool like boost mechanic that was a lot of fun. Next, we have Gundam Extreme versus 2 Overboost, which is a really long name. This game is not retro, and it's not even rare. This is in almost every arcade that I've been to in Tokyo, but I wanted to call it out because I know there's a lot of Gundam fans that watch the channel. And yeah, it's just a cool little modern versus style Gundam game. One thing to note on this that's interesting is all of the control setups have a standard video game controller as well as a joystick for playing the game. Moving to the back of the arcade, you're going to start seeing all of the Astro Cities, lots of various arcade games. We'll get to these in a little bit. But this is one that really caught my eye. This is Rainbow Bomber Girl. I had never heard of it before, and it just stood out to me because I'm a huge Bomberman fan, and I didn't know that there was a modern Bomberman arcade game. And not just a modern Bomberman arcade game, but one with a really interesting 2-screen setup and also a joystick to control, or like a flight stick almost, and all these extra buttons. It was just really fun. Basically what you do is you pick from one of the Bomber Girls to be your character, and you just go online and you play against other people. You can also play single player offline. That's what I did. And yeah, you have a team, so it's Team Bomberman, and you can gather some power-ups to pull off different team moves, which you'll use some of those extra buttons that are on that second screen. There's like one giant button for your super, basically. And yeah, it was just a lot of fun. I would definitely recommend it for any fans of the Bomberman series. Next up, another game that stood out to me was Cobra the Arcade. I actually didn't get to playing this one, but I wanted to call it out because it had this really different style light gun. And yeah, just another cool like game that they had there. Next up, we had Starblade. This one I also didn't play because the way the screen had this like fisheye effect, it really made me feel kind of queasy when I sat in the cockpit to play. But it does have a really cool deluxe cabinet with all of these details and panels, and I just wanted to like document that because it's so cool. One nice thing is on the side, they did have a flat screen showing the gameplay so you can see what the game would look like without all of that warping effect on it. And then they had this baseball game and this really tiny, I guess it's a candy cabinet. It must have been like 3.5 feet tall. It was really tiny and cute. And then moving on to some of the Astro City games, they had Columns, of course, the classic Sega puzzle game. Then they had Tetris the Absolute, the Grandmaster 2 Plus, which is definitely the longest Tetris name I've ever seen. And this basically just looks like an updated Tetris game from, I think, late 90s, early 2000s. And they had a working Mr. Driller G. If you watched my last video, I was really bummed out that the Mr. Driller cabinet was out of order, but this one was working and it looked gorgeous and I had a lot of fun playing it. I'm a huge fan of Mr. Driller. I love the character design. I think he's so cute, and I also think the rest of the game is just really stylish looking, and yeah, classic Mr. Driller arcade fun. And there were a lot of games to explore back here. Moving through, you can see on the left there's a bunch of different shooters, Battle Garega, a few others, and Raiden 2 here, and Viper. Lots of different shooters to pick from. So this one really stuck out to me, Tower of Draga. I think this is the original arcade game. I'd never played it before. I'd never even seen footage of it, and I was really excited to play it. But then the actual gameplay kind of disappointed me a little bit. Partially because I was awful at it. I just kept dying. You have a really, really short, I guess like radius of your sword swing, and it's really hard to hit the slimes, and I just kept dying over and over again. But it was cool to see the origin of the Tower of Draga series. And here we have a lot of the shooters that I called out earlier. I can't name all of them because there are so many, but I highly recommend if you got a chance to come just check it out and just browse through all the different shooters because there's a ton of them. Strikers 1999 here. And moving on, you've got your classic Bubble Bobble. This has really come in a lot of Japanese retro arcades. And you also had some fighting and beat 'em up games in this area as well. And they had Pengo, really cute, classic, old school Sega puzzle action style game. Love that little guy, so cute. And they also had some mahjong style games kind of tucked away in the back there. And jumping back to the front, a few games I missed. They did have Silent Scope, which was in full working order. This is a more modern version of the game, I'm pretty sure, but it was cool. And then they have Wani Wani Panic. This is a game I feel like everyone that grew up in the 90s saw in arcades in the United States, so I was surprised to see it was also really popular in Japan. And then they had this taiko cabinet that I had never seen before. It looked a little bit older, which makes sense for being in this arcade. But yeah, it was just nice to see this deluxe taiko cabinet that I had not seen in any other arcade so far in Japan. And then when you make a right, as soon as you enter the arcade, there's this little nook over here that houses a bunch of rhythm games, as well as a few retro redemption games. So you've got Guitar Freaks, you've got Drum Mania, you've got Poppin' Music, lots and lots of different stuff, as well as these really fun and cheesy advertisements for Drum Mania. And then as we turn over here, you've got Beat Mania The Final, you've got Beat Mania Core Remix, and then you've also got these cool retro redemption games that I had never seen before. In this one, it's like cowboy themed, and you have to knock over a drink to win a prize. So that was kind of cool. I'm so used to just seeing standard crane games in Japanese arcades. It was really refreshing to see some things that were a little bit different. And moving on, we have another retro redemption game called Catchinger Z. So basically in this game, a little capsule will drop down and you need to push a button to time the press so that the arms of the robot catch the capsule. I played it like 3 or 4 times and it was crazy hard. Basically felt impossible to me, so I kind of just gave up and moved on. They also had an old school UFO catcher with really fun art. I don't know what it is about these old games, but I much prefer them to the modern, like pure white, clean crane games that you'll find in so many Japanese arcades. Next up, we've got this little pirate game, and I'm going to be honest with you guys, I have no idea what it is. You pull out this sword and put it in these different slots, but I couldn't really get anything to happen, so I'm not sure what was up with it, but I thought it was really cute and wanted to include it in the video. Next up, we had this game, which was basically a physical version of the Irritating Stick. If you're familiar with that game, I have a version of it for the N64, which is super fun. Basically, you guide a little wand through this electrified maze, and if you hit the walls of the maze, you lose. What was difficult about this one is you have to control it with a crank wheel, and there's basically this momentum component of the gameplay that is super, super hard. So I lost really quickly every time. But yeah, that is the Irritating Stick. They also had a little game over here where you play as a kid, and the goal is basically to steal dumplings from a priest. Kind of random. It was not that fun in my opinion, but I like the art style. Here we have another older style redemption game with lots of different prizes inside. I did not give this one a shot, so I can't tell you how it works, but different than the typical crane game. And then we had Puchiton ABC. This is a really cute little redemption game where you basically put in your money and you spin this little wheel with this cute little pig character, and you try to time your press to land on a number that will win you a prize. And I'll just show you how the game works. And yes, first try, I actually won a prize. I was so surprised. I don't really play crane games because it's so hard to win and you end up often spending a lot of money. But I actually won this first try on just 100 yen. And I won this really cool Power figure from Chainsaw Man. So if you're familiar with Chainsaw Man, Power is one of the main characters. And yeah, it's basically a chibi style Nendroid kind of figure, but it's actually a really nice quality. And I looked up the value, and these are actually worth around $30. So really, really cool to win for about 100 yen. And we're finally moving up to the second floor of the arcade, which is where you're going to find the majority of the fighting games. Starting off, as you enter, there's this little cabinet here that has a bunch of Astro City minis in it, and also some figures that are the mascot of the arcade. And then over here you've got some Tekken 7 cabinets, a little bit more modern, as well as some different puzzle games and things like that toward the back. And over here you've got a ton of Super Street Fighter cabinets, and these are generally used for tournaments, and they're all set up in a 2-player configuration, so second player's on the other side. And then here you can see you've got some Vampire Hunter. Moving a little bit further, you've got X-Men versus Street Fighter and some Street Fighter 03. X-Men versus Street Fighter is one of my all-time favorite versus games. Really, really fun, gorgeous graphics. I played a lot on the Saturn with my Astro City stick, and yeah, just the pixel art is so gorgeous, and I love the way it plays. It's a little bit more simple than some of the later Marvel versus Capcom games. Love that one. And then Street Fighter 03, this is one I always love to play in the arcade because I don't actually own it. I know I can get an affordable copy for the Dreamcast, but I really want that Saturn version, but it is just so expensive. I haven't been able to pick it up yet, so I usually play 02, but yeah, seeing 03 and being able to play it was awesome. They also had Virtua Fighter 3 TB. I am a huge Virtua Fighter fan. I'm pretty much a fan of anything that Yu Suzuki has done, and yeah, I just love Virtua Fighter. 3 TB is not my favorite version, but it was really fun to play in the arcade. They also had a bunch of shooters up on this floor, starting out with Dodonpachi, a really popular vertical shooter. Really great graphics. Love the sprite art in this one. And then moving on, we have a couple of other cave shooters that also had a really gorgeous artwork. I was really a big fan of how these games looked. This one especially had a really cool blend of traditional, 2D shooter sprites with some really cool kind of larger 3D enemies in the background. You can see from the gameplay here, as you move a little bit further into the level, there's this dragon that comes up on the right side that's got that 3D effect going on. And of course they had Metal Slug. No retro arcade would be complete without that. And you can see a few of the other arcade games here. And some of the modern shooters. So they did have quite a few modern shooters on these EXA cabinets. A lot of them were vertically oriented. These were crazy bullet hells, so I didn't play them. I'm not the biggest fan of more modern bullet hells. I like some of the old school shooters a little bit better, but I do want to give them a try at some point because they look really cool and the graphics are quite pretty. And yeah, I don't know, I just like to try new things, so I'm definitely going to give those a shot maybe the next time I check out the arcade. And one other little fun thing here is this cocktail cabinet of Street Fighter 2. I just thought it was a fun little oddity. A few more games here. And yeah, that's pretty much going to do it for the second floor. Alright, so what did you think of this arcade? I think it's super cool. Would love to hear your opinions in the comments below and talk about maybe some of your favorite games or what you would have wanted to play here. And if you made it to the end of the video and you like the kind of videos I make on this channel, consider becoming a channel member. It's a great way to support the channel and also to get different perks like different emotes and access to exclusive videos. There's a bunch of exclusive videos up there already, and I'll be posting at least one per month. You can just hit this join button on the top right of the YouTube page for more information. And also consider coming and hanging out with us on our Discord. There's a link at the top of the YouTube page as well, and it's totally free, and it's just a great place to hang out with other people and talk about, Gundam, plastic models, retro games, anime, all kinds of stuff. And yeah, we'd love to have you there. So guys, that's pretty much gonna do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching as always. If you enjoyed this, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I will catch you guys in the next video. All right, bye.